Yeah, I'm pretty good, huh?
Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. Today we are going to talk about a being known as Zetsu. More specifically, what Zetsu actually is, how these creatures appeared, and what role they truly played in the history of the shinobi world. And most importantly, who Spiral Zetsu is, why he is one of the kind, and why he was called Tobi. The video promises to be interesting. Enjoy watching. Zetsu was first introduced to us as a member of the Akatsuki, a strange, plant-like creature that had two entities within one body, White Zetsu and Black Zetsu. At that time, the story didn't really explain who he was and kept everything about him a mystery. The only thing that was clear was that he had two entities and that he was more of the strategist than a fighter. He mainly gathered information while working for the Akatsuki and had the ability to pass through objects. This remained the case for more than half of anime. Only during the Obito arc, when Madara found him under the rubble and saved him, did the story begin to reveal the truth about Zetsu. That's when we were shown two Zetsu, White Zetsu, who would later be considered the original, and Spiral White Zetsu, the only one of his kind. At that moment, the story revealed that these two Zetsu were failed experimental clones created by Uchiha Madara using Hashirama's cells with the help of the Gedamaza. The logic is simple. After Madara awakened the Rinnegan, he summoned the Geda starter and began experimenting with creating Hashirama clones, and that's how Zetsu appeared. And this is where Black Zetsu enters the story. He was introduced as Madara's true will. In the end, everything was tied to him. After Obito lost Rin and chose the path of helping Madara carry out the infinitive Tsukuyomi plan, Madara told him what needed to be done and, before his death, created Black Zetsu to replace himself so that Black Zetsu would help Obito. At that point, more viewers already had a clear picture of who the Zetsu were. However, in reality, the story deliberately misled us. About at the very end, the plot completely changes direction and only then reveals the truth about Zetsu. That all these Zetsu were not being created by Madara. White Zetsu is actually the shell of the human who was caught in the infinitive Tsukuyomi many centuries ago. Cho's life was completely drained by the divine tree, turning him into a kind of mutant. Because of his long fusion with the divine tree, he was able to use wood release. And Black Zetsu is poor embodiment of Kaguya Otsutsuki, who manipulated the shinobi world for many centuries in order to revive his mother. This is what the story reveals at the very end. However, I think I'm not the only one who is left with a few questions. For example, why did Madara even try to create Hashirama clones using the Gedamaza? Where did Black Zetsu actually come from in Madara's life? Why were there only two Zetsu at first and later an entire army? And the most important question, who is Spiral Zetsu? Let's start from the beginning. Why did Madara start trying to create Hashirama clones? It's simple. As we already know, Black Zetsu was the true will of Kaguya, with only one goal, to revive his mother. To do that, simply put, he needed to activate the infinitive Tsukuyomi, and for that, the reincarnation of Indra had to awaken the Rinnegan by mixing his chakra with the chakra of the reincarnation of Ashura. Then he had to gather all the tailed beasts and, using the Rinnegan, summon the Gedamaza and seal them inside it, reviving the 10 tails. After that, he had to become the 10 tails Jinchuriki and activate the infinitive Tsukuyomi. In short, it was a very long and complicated plan, and Zetsu was lucky to find Madara, someone who actually carried it out. Coming back to the question, Black Zetsu appeared after the awakening of the Rinnegan, disguising himself as Madara's will and becoming his adversary. It was he who led Madara to creation creation of these clones from Hashirama's cells to free the White Zetsu and also make it seem like they were created by Madara himself. All of this was done to help carry out the infinitive Tsukuyomi plan. Alright, now let's move to the next question. Why were there only 2 Zetsu at first and later an entire army? After watching the anime, I was sure that all Zetsu were simply people affected by a past infinitive Tsukuyomi. But in reality, that's not exactly how it works. Out of all the Zetsu that were shown, only 2 were truly originals, meaning they were once humans who merged with the divine tree. These are exactly the 2 Zetsu we were shown from the very beginning. In the Obito arc, White Zetsu merged with Black Zetsu and was later killed by Sasuke, and Spiral Zetsu stayed with Obito for a long time, and later during the war he enveloped Yamata and was able to move independently. All the others were simply clones of White Zetsu, the non-spiral one. According to official sources, White Zetsu was able to clone himself, creating numerous copies that looked like him and followed his will. This is how such a massive army of White Zetsu appeared during the war. It's also Kabuto played a role in this by strengthening them through his experiments. And just imagine, all of this went exactly according to Black Zetsu's plan. He was so cunning and intelligent that he foresaw how important this would be in the future when he accidentally presented Madara with those 2 White Zetsu. Honestly, I want to give huge respect to the creators of Naruto manga and anime for such a complex and well thought out story. There are so many details that you don't realize right away. And now the final and most interesting question: who is Spiral Zetsu and why he is unique? Spiral Zetsu is most likely not the only one of his kind. It's just that he probably didn't have the ability to clone himself like regular White Zetsu. Or maybe he wasn't as effective in combat without merging with a human. As I mentioned earlier, they had different abilities because they were humans in the past, so it's quite obvious that they would be different. And because regular White Zetsu became numerous while Spiral Zetsu remained alone, everyone started to believe that he was one of the kind, although, in my personal opinion, he wasn't. By the way, it was Spiral Zetsu from whom Obito borrowed his behavior when he pretended to be Tobi. So you could say that Tobi is basically Spiral Zetsu, funny and a bit dumb. To sum it up, White Zetsu, a human after the infinitive Tsukuyomi who could clone himself. White Spiral Zetsu, also a human after the infinitive Tsukuyomi, but one of who either couldn't clone himself or simply wasn't cloned. Black Zetsu, the poor will of Kaguya, created for her eventual resurrection. That's who Zetsu really are. I tried to break down all the unclear moments of the story as clearly as possible, things I personally hadn't thought about before. And honestly, I was surprised by how many subtle details the plot actually has. What do you think about this? Make sure to write your thoughts in the comments. It will be interesting to read your theories and arguments on this topic. Also, don't forget to subscribe. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it and let me know which topics you would like me to break down next. I will definitely read your suggestions. Good luck to everyone and see you next time!